New York City, the bustling metropolis, the heart of America, where dreams are born and ambitions thrive. But beneath the towering skyscrapers and busy streets lies a darker side, a side filled with shadows, secrets, and sinister figures. While the city's skyline tells the story of human triumph, its underground tells the story of unspeakable horrors. Today, we journey into the terrifying world of New York's most shocking serial killers, individuals whose cold-blooded actions left an indelible mark on the city that never sleeps. Our first story begins in the early 1900s with a man who became one of the most notorious figures in New York's dark history, Albert Fish. At first glance, Fish appeared as an unassuming elderly man, blending seamlessly into the crowded streets of Manhattan. But beneath his quiet demeanor was a mind twisted by the darkest desires imaginable. Fish, who was later dubbed the Boogeyman, preyed on children. His acts were so grotesque that even hardened detectives shuddered at the details. He sent letters to the families of his victims, detailing the horrific things he had done, relishing in the terror he had caused. His capture in 1934 brought an end to a reign of terror that had haunted New York, but the scars left behind were deep. The question that still haunts those who study the case is, how could someone so ordinary commit crimes so extraordinary in their cruelty? To this day, Albert Fish remains one of the most shocking serial killers in New York's history, a figure who brought fear to the city's streets for years. From the 1920s, we jump to the early 1990s, where another killer silently prowled the streets of New York. Joel Rifkin was a man who, on the surface, appeared to be just another face in the crowd. But beneath the facade of normalcy, Rifkin harbored deadly secrets. Over a period of 4 years, he brutally murdered at least 17 women, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in New York's history. Rifkin was cunning. His victims were often women on the margins of society, people whose disappearances might go unnoticed for days or even weeks. He used this to his advantage, carrying out his horrific acts with disturbing efficiency. Rifkin would often dispose of his victims' bodies in remote areas, hoping that their remains would never be found. And for a long time, his plan worked. It wasn't until a simple traffic stop in 1993 that Rifkin's horrifying double life came crashing down. Police discovered the body of his latest victim in the trunk of his car, leading to his arrest. The full extent of his crimes was revealed, and the city was stunned. Joel Rifkin, the quiet man from Long Island, had been a monster lurking in plain sight. Perhaps one of the most infamous serial killers in New York's history is David Berkowitz, better known as the Son of Sam. During the hot summer of 1976, the city was gripped by fear as a series of seemingly random shootings began to unfold. Victims were gunned down in their cars or on the streets, often without any warning. The killer, later revealed to be Berkowitz, left behind chilling letters taunting the police and the media, claiming that he was carrying out these murders on orders from a demonic entity. Berkowitz's spree lasted over a year, with the city on edge at every turn. No one knew when or where he would strike next. It wasn't until a parking ticket near the scene of one of the murders helped police track down Berkowitz that his reign of terror came to an end. When arrested, Berkowitz calmly confessed to the murders, offering bizarre explanations for his actions. He claimed that his neighbor's dog had been possessed by a demon, compelling him to kill. Whether it was madness or calculated evil, David Berkowitz's actions left a deep scar on New York, and his name became synonymous with terror. The Son of Sam's killings weren't just a series of tragic events. They were a psychological assault on the city, causing widespread panic and fear that still lingers in the collective memory of New York. Next, we delve into the twisted world of Richard Cottingham, also known as the Torso Killer. His gruesome moniker was earned through his method of mutilating the bodies of his victims, often leaving behind only their torsos, with other body parts missing. Cottingham's killing spree spanned over a decade, primarily targeting women in and around New York City during the 1970s and early 1980s. His methodical nature and brutal dismemberment of his victims horrified the public and stymied investigators for years. Unlike many serial killers, Cottingham was difficult to track due to his ability to blend into society. He worked as a computer operator by day, but by night he unleashed his most brutal impulses. It wasn't until 1980, when one of his victims miraculously survived an attack, that police were able to finally apprehend him. Cottingham was sentenced to life in prison, but even behind bars, he continued to shock the world. In recent years, he has admitted to more murders than initially thought, taking his body count higher than anyone could have imagined. Even now, the full extent of his crimes remains uncertain, as Cottingham continues to play a twisted game with the truth. Not all of New York's serial killers come from the modern era. Lizzie Halliday, a name not as well known but no less horrifying, is often considered New York's first female serial killer. In the late 19th century, Halliday's brutal murders shocked the small communities of upstate New York. Her crimes began with the mysterious deaths of two husbands, but what followed was even more chilling. In 1893, the bodies of two women were found buried on her property. As the investigation unfolded, the true extent of her killing spree came to light. Halliday's violent tendencies were far beyond what anyone had suspected, and her erratic behavior during her trial only added to her sinister reputation. She was eventually convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Lizzie Halliday's legacy is one of madness and violence, a haunting reminder that even in the distant past, New York was home to killers capable of unimaginable cruelty. New York, with its towering skyline and bustling streets, has seen more than its fair share of terrifying individuals. But these figures stand out not only for the number of their victims, but for the deep scars they left on the psyche of the city. The shocking nature of these crimes has woven a dark thread into the fabric of New York's history. As the city continues to move forward, these stories remain a haunting reminder of the evil that has walked among us. Like what you see? Don't forget to like, subscribe Securelo channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more captivating stories and essential tips.